BBC Radio Stoke. Hey, we have the one and only Cliff Richard. Lovely to have you on the show this afternoon.
James, thank you very much for having me on. Glad to be here.
And you've got this album now with the rock and roll album, of course, which you brought out last year, which is fabulous. All your rock and roll favourites, and you're taking that on the road.
Well, it's not. I'm doing some for the first rock and roll album and some from the second. You know, I mean, I've been around a long time now, and I've affected people's lives, hopefully in a nice way. And there are certain things that I cannot change. I don't have a total choice of my own here, because I feel I've got to sing certain songs that are a part of people's memories here. I mean, how can I not do Summer Holiday and The Young Ones and stuff like that? You know, I have to. Wired for Sound, Devil Woman, We Don't Talk Anymore. And there's a whole bunch that I feel I need to do because that's what people remember, and they probably have fabulous memories of what they were doing at that time, where they were living. So I do those. But I like to inject stuff from the new album. I'm definitely going to do Roll Over Beethoven. I'm going to have a go at Multiplication. I'll be doing a couple of Chuck Berrys from the first album, and of course a lot of my old hits, and a couple of things that I've not done before on stage. So it'll be a fun show. It'll be definitely a rock and roll show.
So the gig's going to be Catton Hall in Derbyshire on the 22nd. That's going to be great. We've ordered Sunshine for you, Cliff, which is great news. Because you're used to the sunshine. Because I don't know quite sure where you live now, Cliff, because you seem to have lots of houses, which is great.
No, I do have houses everywhere, and I live everywhere, really. I tend to spend the summers in Portugal. I go to Barbados in the winter, and then I travel around. I do tours, and I like being in America. I enjoy being. I go there to record as well. But so I spend most of my life traveling around, to be honest with you. But I live everywhere. I mean, the houses I have feel like home. I'm a very fortunate man in that I wake up in the morning, no matter where I am. I'm in London as I speak to you, and I'm looking out the window thinking, oh my God, how did I ever get to be right smack here in London looking at a fabulous landscape of Canary Wharf? And it's fantastic for me. I am a very fortunate person. My career and rock and roll gave me a life that I could only dream about when I was at school.
Yeah.
You know, listening to Elvis and people like that. I never dreamed that I would actually have a career of my own. But, you know, it happens, and sometimes there's a certain amount of luck involved. But the thing about luck is you have to recognize it and then grab it by the throat and don't let go until something happens.
I mean, just about well over 50 years you've been in our hearts and you've been singing songs to us. Do you remember the first time you ever heard your song on the radio?
Oh, yeah, I did. It was Move It, of course. And, I mean, the first time I ever heard my voice on anything was in the recording studio. And I can't tell you because in those early days we didn't have multi-tracking. So we had to do it live. And then they'd say, do it again, so maybe 4 or 5 times. And then they said, come up and listen. And we'd go up, and I heard my voice coming out of the speakers, and I could not believe it. It's the most strange thing. And I still find that probably in the whole of my career, in the industry itself, the thing I've enjoyed most is recording. I mean, just using all that expensive equipment and having your voice come out at you, changing things if you've sung badly and something or mispronounced something. It's just the most fantastic, very creative part of our industry. So I can remember hearing it. It was on BBC, and it was I can't remember what show it was, but I remember in those early days, our records, we rock and rollers we didn't take over. You know, I was played in between Frank Sinatra and Max Bygraves, a comedian, you know. So everybody got airplay. And I remember hearing it thinking, oh, my God, I can't believe this is me. And when you think about it, you know, I made that first record when I was still only 17. I was 17 and a bit. So I'd only left school for a year.
Wow.
And there I was listening to myself on the radio. It just seemed impossible.
Come on, pretty baby, let's move it and a groove it. Dipsos have got nothing on. A real country music that just drives along.
BBC Radio Stoke, and that's Cliff. Move it. We got Cliff on the line right now, and it's never stopped. Have you always thought it's going to continue, or has there always been? Was there a point you thought, oh, this might be the last hit?
Well, at the very beginning, you know, all of us were written off as either one-hit wonders, or a clever Dick phrase was "here today but gone tomorrow."
Yeah.
And so, in a way, after a couple of years, you start thinking, oh, maybe they're right, you know. But fortunately, the Shadows and I continued to have hits. I introduced them, recording-wise. I brought them into Norrie Paramore and said, "You've got to hear my band," because he didn't let me. He wouldn't want. He didn't. First 3 records, I think, were without the Shadows, because he couldn't trust that an amateur band could be any good. Yeah. And I said, "You have to hear them." And he heard them, and from that moment onwards, I recorded with nobody else until they broke up. So the Shadows started having hits on their own, and between the two of us, we pretty well controlled the charts. But then the Beatles came along, and the 3 of us controlled the charts. But it was a fantastic time, and I'll always look back with great pleasure at that time.
Now, you're doing these gigs over the summer, of course. You've done many gigs over your years. What are the standout gigs that you've done that you thought, wow, this is pretty special?
I always forget where it was, but there was a show. We were flown in by helicopter to do it. The Shadows and I, the Beatles. Yes, Paul McCartney was on. Pink Floyd was playing. Status Quo was on. It was a big open air function way north of London, and there were 250,000 people. I've never sung to so many people live on stage before, and Elton was on as well. So why was it? It may come to me before we finish, and if it does, I'll scream out the name. But it was a fantastic one, absolutely fantastic. But I think my favorite place to play is still the Albert Hall. It's smaller, You're talking about an intimate 5,000-seater, but there's something prestigious about being in the capital city and playing at the Albert Hall. It's almost in the round. I don't know if you've been. It's a sort of circular building. Yeah. The stage is at one end, but you still feel as though you've got in fact, I do. There's people sit behind you, too. So I quite like the atmosphere of that. But, that particular concert that I mentioned was very exciting to be with all those huge names, all British, mostly all British. I don't know if there were any Americans. And it was just a very proud moment for me to get on that stage.
BBC Radio Stoke, Cliff Richard, Devil Woman. Play that one for Corey, who's got us on the show. Hello, Corey. Good to know you're listening today. Corey loves the new rock and roll album, Cliff. Dancing along to the music of this one at the moment. Afternoon, Corey. Got a message from your mum. All right. Now, you've been everywhere, done it. You've got numerous T-shirts, Cliff, as we know. Okay. What is there anything you'd like to do? Anyone you'd like to play with that you've still got? Oh, I'd love to do that still.
Well, I'm always hearing songs by other people and think, oh, I wish I got that first. And I still would love to try and sing with someone like Mariah Carey. You're talking about someone who's got... Mariah Carey must have about a 4-octave voice.
Yeah.
I think I've got half an octave. But just to blend, because I sang with Sarah Brightman, and I might be able to work with her again. We've talked about it. I loved recording with singing with Elaine Page. I'd love to do something with her. But when you come to think of someone like Mariah Carey, she's made these huge hits, and it would be the most unlikely coupling for her and I to get together and sing. And that always appeals to me. I feel that when I sang with Sarah Brightman from the song All I Ask of You, which came from Phantom of the Opera, the Andrew Lloyd Webber show, I thought this was an impossible connection. How am I going? I'm a pop singer, and she's a light opera singer, and but it worked. It joined. At least you know which one was the bloke.
And are you still doing the Cliff calendars, because they've become an institution?
Yeah, they did. But a couple of years ago, I went through a couple of bad years, and I didn't feel like being photographed all the time. So we've released a couple of a cross between a calendar and an album is a calbum.
Yeah, all right.
So I had an album and a calendar out at the same time, and I was so proud. This last December, when the calendars are released for this year, for instance, 2017, my calendar did go to number 1. Now, I need you to ask me who was number 2.
Who was number 2? Go on, Justin Bieber? Justin Bieber!
I looked at that. I laughed so much. I thought to myself, how can this be happening to me? It's just impossible, you know.
Wow.
And of course, funnily enough, Justin Bieber and I have quite a lot in common, in that he started at the age of about 17. And I'd made my first record at 17. It's funny how, when you think about life as it goes on, nothing really changes.
Well,
things continue. And he started at the same age I did.
Well, long may it continue, Cliff. Good to see you. Hear you're sounding so good this afternoon, and we're looking forward to seeing you at Catton Hall on the 22nd of June. Cliff, absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on the radio this afternoon.
Thank you very much. I shall be there, and I hope everybody else will too. Bye-bye, and thanks.
There you go, Cliff. We spoke to him yesterday. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Well, a couple of days.